And again, that's just taping my audio and visual here. All right, so one of the first things you're going to want to do, we're going to play this very openly, of course. This was pre-set up from a previous play, right? And I saved it kind of in its starting state just to kind of save a little time. One of the first things for you to do as blue, right, would be to work in some of these dummy unit elements, right? Anywhere you want. So you could, again, probably anywhere behind, get a line here, anywhere behind like this line here would be fine. So you can set up dummies either amidst other units. The thing to realize is that just from a kind of rulings perspective, you can have up to 6 infantry elements in a square, right? I'll probably use the terms space and square. I mean, each of these is a space, right? Each square is basically a space. So as you look at any one of these sections on the roadways, etc., this is a full space right here, right?
Yeah, I got it.
That's pretty straightforward. Let's see. One thing, the best thing to kind of keep in mind throughout this whole thing, right, and through playing it, etc., is basically the turn. This is well done by Ed Farron. Ed Farron is from the Flight Club International. He basically wrote this game. I think others have helped with the rules, but if you in effect stick with what's written on the phase track here, you'll be pretty good. Like if you do nothing else after leaving here, just know that if you read through this very very specifically, it will tell you what you need to go look at in the rules. And I can get you a PDF. Do you have the rules? I can hand you the PDF if you want. That's fine.
I think I do.
Yeah, it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't. It's a very simple rule set. You'll see. It's a very detailed rule set, but it's very simple. All right. So first things first, I would just mix in these dummies anywhere you want. I'm not going to look while you do it. Okay. I'm going to do similar here on the red side, and you'll note one of the first things you'll notice, of course, is I have a heck of a lot more of them, right? And that's on purpose by scenario design. Usually, what Ed recommended was that the defender gets a 1-for-1 ratio of dummy, and the attacker gets a 1-for-3 ratio of dummy. That's why you only have 4, and I have more than that. All right, it's by scenario. If for some reason you're setting up a scenario with more chaos, more lack of intel, etc., you can adjust that by scenario, of course. So I'm gonna put down some dummies in simple view. With some dummies, I'm gonna stay over here, and I'm not looking at what you're doing. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna know where you are anyway, because we're gonna walk through it very slowly. I'm gonna help you anyway, so don't worry about it. And you'll see where mine are eventually. But just for a little bit of intrigue, let me double check if my also let me keep an eye on the channel just in case anybody else is trying to join. Second. We'll go through like one turn fully, and then we'll decide if you want to go through another full turn. It's fine. Demo for demo's sake. All right, so if you're ready, we will kind of slowly go through this. First things first, let's go look here. Hopefully you're seeing my little arrow. All right, so we're going to go very slowly through this, one at a time. And tactics beware, right? Don't worry about tactics right now, right? We're just learning the rules. So as you see here, eligible elements may move up to max allowance according to training restrictions. Okay. So how this works is, first of all, we'll just pick something. Maybe we'll go left to right here. We'll start over here and work our way left to right. All right, so dummies move exactly like any other infantry, of course, right? You're trying to bluff the enemy, right? So this is representative of either electronic warfare or just a subterfuge, whatever, shenanigans, however you want to say. All right, so these aperture little markers here, see these diagonal markers. These are apertures, okay? This effectively, these green ones are doorways, right? Like more open frontages of a building. Okay. These yellow ones are more window ways, right? So this allows a maximum. The yellows allow a maximum of 2 elements to move through it in a turn for your side, right? And your movement. It's an I go you go sort of system, right? So right here the blue is gonna go, and then when they move, they can only get 2 through here as well. The maximum on the green apertures is 4 elements can move in and out from your side. Okay. So let's just, I mean, you can move these guys however you want. You can always move 1. So that's the first movement rule, right? So like this guy can always go here no matter what's here, right? And then we're also just kind of obeying the aperture limit, of course, there's only 1. So if this guy wanted to move here, he would move here. Now, because he's always going 1, because he has hit cover, right? He has hit a space that has some form of obstruction in it, right? He would stop. Okay, that's how it's generally done. So if for some reason, let's say this space right here was a roadway, but this was a cover one, he could have gone 1, 2, and he would stop in the cover, if you will. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And then.
Right.
These are done more from a point-to-point obstruction sense. So, like for example, if we're here, we're trying to fire on an enemy element here in this covered area with the cars, this parking lot. As you can see, it crosses the tree, so that actually would be an obstructed line of sight. Yeah. So the things, quotation marks, visible on the space are physically there, right? These are obviously relatively simplified environments, but you could, like, if you were to want to play this with, you could do this even in a professional military environment. You could have some very detailed spaces if you really wanted to, and ultimately, what you're still looking for is when you go from center to center, whether or not anything physically obstructs the line of sight. Okay. There are some very specific rules about height and line of sight, etc. So, like, if for example, this guy was on the roof of this building, which with this 2 here, it does have 2 floors. So if this guy was on the 2nd floor, and using, I don't know, we would probably say there's probably a yellow aperture on the 2nd floor, really, honestly, but he probably would still have line of sight. You got to kind of like use your general logic as to whether or not you'd be higher than the height of the stuff, right? So if this in a kind of more of a professional setting, you might want to have maybe some height markers on your foliage or something to that effect, where you're saying like if this was a level 1 tree, if you will, being on level 2, you could probably see over it and see these people, right, and not be obstructed. You got to use basically your common sense and then as an umpire or whatever. All right, so we had moved this one. Why don't you move these guys right here and just kind of talk, like, let's talk through it. So which direction would you want to go? Would you want to go out the aperture here, or would you want to go out the front door, if you will, towards the...
Probably out.
All right, so that's one. And so you always get to go one, but because you hit a cover space, you're going to stop, okay? So you could move this guy as well, or you can move him that way, whichever. So that's cool. And the one thing that's not visible on this, you should have a stairway. You see how there's stairways over here as well? There should be one on this mark. I think there's an omission here. So you can get up to a second floor if you wanted to here. And we will use a little marker. Hold on a second. I'm going to bring in a marker real quick. So, like, if somebody's going to be on the second floor, we put like a little marker. Do you want to keep him on the first floor or second floor? Okay, that's fine. We'll just keep this here for the fight. All right, so far, again, we're still in this movement, so we're going to go left to right. So now you would want to move these guys here if you want to. I should have led with this. Sorry. Let me tell you your objective. All right, so the objective is for blue to make their way to this building here on the corner of the map. There's a high value asset or target, HVT or HVA, in this building here. You don't know which side of the building it is, but you have intelligence that there's a high value target there. So your goal is to get at least one element into that building and remain in that building for at least a minimum of 2 turns. Right, the first turn is you get there, and one additional turn. Okay, does that make sense? All right. So again, you're going to try to, you are the attacking force, and you are trying to get at least one element. If that changes your decisions here in any way, please do. But so go forward with movement here. Okay, so the maximum, let me tell you what the maximum is 3 always, and that's for infantry and vehicles, by the way, which is interesting. So you can always remember your movement max because it's the same for everybody. I kind of like that in this drill set because, in urban operations, even though you might be able to floor it, if you will, you still have so many obstructions that the vehicles are not at such a huge advantage. Right? And I think that he did that by design on purpose. Okay, so I would go ahead and just move these guys. These guys here, but I just move these guys. However you want. If you don't want to move them, that's fine too. No, you're good. So this is a good example. Okay, yeah, you would stop there basically. Yeah. Okay, so let me explain this one. You did it exactly right, right? You went into an open area, right? Here, this is an open space. So that's definitely a 1, right? And then what this is considered is it is considered an obstructed place unless you have friendlies there. So it's a really cool system. So you had gone 2 here, but you have to stop because it was unknown whether there was enemy there. Okay, so it's basically like an obstruction. And what that's simulating is the fact that you're covering each other, you're busting through the doorway or whatever. There's added obstruction to not knowing, right? So that's why you have to stop. If there had already been, let's just say that guy was already there, and had been there for a turn, then you basically, you are aware of the building, right? So then you would be able to probably go 1 more square at that point, but you don't know, so you have to stop. Another thing to realize is that the stairways are considered obstructions and unknown areas. So if you were to go here, you couldn't go upstairs yet. It would take you the turn to kind of make your way up. Okay. It's considered an obstruction. So you would basically go boom, say you're going up the stairs, you have to stop. So you could make it up the stairs, but you would have obstructed. Okay. So you're good there. You did that exactly right. So I would probably move any of these other ones.
Yeah, probably for it.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. Okay, the one thing I didn't explain is you have to go. You do have to go vertically or horizontally only. That's one thing about the system to get used to is that perfect. So that's one, and then you could get them. Yeah, that's fine. Yep, and then you would stop because it's like an obstructed. It has some obstructions in it. Perfect. That's two, and then you could move him out if you really wanted to. This dummy could move like that. Actually, I don't know if that's a wall. That might actually be that actually is a wall, like a fence here. This is like right here is a fence. So because it's moving only one, he could actually scale the wall and get there. Does that make sense as well? I really like the movement system. It's kind of abstracted, but it does make sense. So that's all that. Did you want to move any more here? Okay, you're good there. Okay, so so you're done. So you're declaring you're done with the move, right? All right. So let's just take a close look at this so I don't forget anything. So we're gonna look at the action. We're looking at the actions. At this point, we would adjust smoke. If you had popped smoke, one thing I want to send you is the playbook. There's a playbook linked in that room. I don't know if you had pulled down my playbook. It's right. Let me slide it. I just pinned you where I put the playbook. You might want to keep that down because it does go over the actions pretty reasonably well. So let me bring up the rule book and I'll explain. Well, I'm trying to get to my. I don't know what's going on. My Adobe is. Give me a second. All right, so we're going to go over what the actions that you can do at this point. All right. So I'm gonna just go down. I'm gonna go down this list very quickly, and then you'll just basically tell me what you want to do, and we'll go through it as you want to do it. All right. At this point, left to right, or however we want to handle it, you could deploy smoke. If you were a leader, if the element is a leader, you can direct fire for others. Right? You can assume command as a leader in case like a higher echelon leader has fallen. You could start a fire if you really wanted to. You could mount and dismount a vehicle as an action. You can operate a drone or a loitering munition, which we don't have currently. You can go into Overwatch, which would then allow you to be able to basically intercept movement in the next turn. You can breach a wall, you can place a ladder, you can treat casualties, you can interact with civilians, blah, blah, blah. So if you generally tell me what you intend to do, we'll kind of go left to right and do the needful. So, the dummy has no action really that it can do, of course. So this rifleman, he doesn't see anybody. We're just gonna kind of talk through why you probably don't have that much to do, right? at this point we haven't done auto revealing, and I think that's something I did wrong in the previous time I did this. But we don't really adjust the line of sight until we get to the administration phase. So going first is not necessarily the greatest thing because you don't really have auto revealing yet, right? And what happens for revealment or revealing an enemy is if they are in cover of any kind, with obstructions or otherwise, they are auto revealed within 5 spaces. So, for example, let's just say there was an enemy here. They basically would be auto revealed, and then anybody within 5 the other way would be auto revealed as well. It goes both ways. All right, but we don't do that until the administration phase of either side. Okay, so that's something to kind of play around with because so even if they're there, they're not targetable, right? Quotation marks, until we get to the admin phase and do the auto spotting. Okay, now as an action, if there was, I'm gonna copy a red real quick, just put it here, just for visual sake. If for some reason there was even in the building here, if this was like this and it hadn't been auto revealed yet, right? Which is the case right now, right? If you had wanted to fire from any one of these elements on that element, you could, but you would have to attempt a spotting instead of it being an auto spotting. Okay, and there are rules for that, and which we'll go through if we get in that situation. Okay, I just wanted you to know that if it hasn't been revealed yet, there are ways to try to reveal it for firing. Okay, and then when you do that, you do reveal yourself. So, for example, if there was an enemy there and you wanted to try to spot it, what first happens is you reveal yourself. No matter what, if you're going to fire, you're revealing yourself. Okay, that's one thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to stop for a second because that won't make sense so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a sequence complete.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So let me just get rid of this. All right. So we're not quite close enough, but these guys are going to, so that's the thing. I kind of wanted to call out those rules before we get here because, okay, so for example, if you remove these guys here, you would, I mean, you're going to start auto revealing yourself here. All right. You would be aware enough of each other to target each other. Right. You know there's something in there. It does. You don't get to auto target it until the end of your until here, right? The admin phase, right? That's I kind of like that. It's kind of like a baked in. You got to kind of figure out if they're enemy. You got to make sure they're not civilians. You know what I'm saying? It's like something's going on in this building. You see some activity, right? But you can't really target it. You're not gonna fire on it until you identify it appropriately in some way. It's kind of neat. I think it's definitely great, apropos for Urbanot. So really, let's see here. Yeah, the wall right here. You wouldn't be able to like try to spot here because this would be instructions. You can't spot from non-adjacent. So, but if these guys were here, you could try to spot fire. So a hint here would be if you want to keep these guys kind of not targetable, you probably want to keep them where they're at. Now, if you want to, in other words, you may want to wait until you have some friends nearby to move into a position to start an attack, right? Right. Let's see here. And again, the auto spotting doesn't occur until the end. So if you kind of, it's not like gonna be automatic. So in other words, as you move through the building and up to the second floor or even the roof, and certain buildings you can get on top of. For example, these are flat buildings. You see how the residentials have sloped roofs? Then these industrial ones have flat roofs. So this is so these are like 2-floor residential spaces, and then this is a 1-floor industrial, but you could get on the roof because it's when it shows this symbol and it's kind of like a more of a concrete building, you can get on top of this one, right? So you could get to the top. You could put a ladder up and get on top of this. You notice how it doesn't have a stairwell to the top. So whatever. That's basically like an industrial building that you can get physically on top of with like ladders. So let me take a breather for a second. Any other actions we could do? The only other thing is possibly popping smoke, but I don't know really where you have on obstruct. I mean, you could possibly, anywhere kind of like within line of sight here. You could probably pop smoke maybe. Now, the as written, the kind of grenade level or UGL or undergun launcher types of grenades and so forth, they obstruct fire, but they do not obstruct line of sight. We're working on a potential house rule adjustment in that, where if there's 2 or more smoke, or even 3 or more, we're trying to debate whether it's 2 or 3, it will add up to an obstruction of line of sight, right? Because smoke, it's not. I mean, you can still kind of, it's not thick, onto itself with one smoke grenade. It's good, but it's not necessarily good enough to totally obstruct. Now it does affect fire through that space. So I kind of wanted to just mention that. Also, smoke dissipates, and just as a general rule, unless there's something written in the scenario otherwise, it will dissipate after a second turn. So if you were to pop smoke as an action, as a grenade here or something like that, you would put a marker. So it would be a building marker. So if this guy pops smoke here, it would be building, and then it flips. So it basically flips to or changes to it dispersing, right? So you always get 2 turns of the smoke, which is kind of neat. I think by scenario, you could, if you had some ultra really nice smoke grenades or something, you could simulate that. Let's see here. While we're talking about markers and such, let's take a quick look here. When you put somebody in Overwatch, you would just put a marker on top of that. If you wanted to do an action of placing a ladder to get on a roof that you otherwise can't get up to, then you would use it. These damage markers are more for APVs, tanks, MBTs, because most tanks have 3 levels of damage that they can take. Most infantry elements will basically be taken out with 1. Right? Some ATVs or IFVs, fighting vehicles, have 2, right? And it'll be very clearly demarked by the scenario itself, usually, or on the unit card. That Ed is working on some very specific vehicle cards, which are really nice looking, but I haven't imported those yet. Not really using this here. Okay. Let's see. One thing we didn't really take a good look at is the pieces themselves. So let's take a quick look at this rifle UPL rating. So I don't know if you want to position yourself to view it. But the little yellow one here is its combat value, really, right? It's combat effectiveness. That is what is added when it tries to do a fire on him. The red is a high explosive, basically an a high explosive functionality of that UGL. So that's it. Popping an HE grenade. I think. Okay. And then HE does better against APVs or IFVs, infantry fighting vehicles or armored personnel vehicles. You'd have to have a red to be able to do anything. any significant damage. You can still put basically the yellow is small arms fire, and the red is its explosive capability, right? It's high explosive capability, and its armor piercing capabilities. When you take a look at a vehicle, which may occur later in the match, another thing about this specific scenario is that I have these bags in the corners, right? As you can kind of see here and here, that might have some mystery. We might have some toys show up, okay? But we'll see. We'll see if we can get that far. Let me slow down. Let me stop for one moment. Any questions? What ends up happening is as an element takes fire, it will be suppressed, which is this marker here. It'll either be suppressed or it will take damage. If an element takes damage, the block is taken off, and then casualty markers are left. Okay, you see these casualty markers. The yellow ones are a little bit less. This is basically like a light casualty, and this is like a heavy casualty, basically. And it goes through different kind of levels. You have to get a medically capable unit or element into the same space in order to stabilize the casualties. Okay. If you don't get a supporting element that is capable of providing medical assistance or support into the space, then there is a chance that it will worsen, okay, and eventually become chaotic. There are certain situations, there are certain results in fire combat that would just take the element out, right? So whenever you hit something, what you're doing is you're checking the chance to hit, and then you're checking whether it's suppressed, light casualty, heavy casualty, or KIA, right? Okay, so again, this is light casualty, heavy casualty, or KIA. If it just goes straight to KIA, you can just take the element off the map.
What kind of units are capable of?
In this, I honestly, at this point, I would say the leader. We're going to use the leader as, representative of the support elements as well. Normally, I would have engineers, and in this simple demo, I didn't put any on here. But look, we can just call it that the leader is really representative of the support for the platoon. Okay. You have just to make sure you're aware of them. You have 2 leaders associated with the leader. Everything's kept with as an element for scaling purposes, right? If you are able to, there are markers that include multiple elements that you can swap in. So, like for example, if you had, an entire squad and you wanted to represent that better, you could. There are markers with like two rifle and 3 rifle, right? So you can actually basically stack with a marker so that you don't have to keep like 6 or 7 markers. I tend to not do that myself just because whatever, I was still learning the game really old. Trying to think of anything other significant. Yeah, again, the Overwatch, placing yourself in Overwatch. Like, so for example, if you you were done with your movement, let's just use this guy for example. Say you wanted to keep this guy in Overwatch, as an action, he could have moved because ultimately, the movement phase was first, right? He could have moved, and then his action could be placing himself in Overwatch, right? So we would put an Overwatch on this guy. I'm going to use another example guy here just for giggles. There's somebody here at the doorway. So just to kind of show you how Overwatch works. What happens is when we get to the red turn, right? They move, and that's when Overwatch would take effect. So if this enemy right here was moving out of this building, and any movement would trigger this Overwatch, right? And that's basically a free fire phase, right? A free firefight. At which point, let's see, I can't remember. Yeah, as soon as you enact that firefight, you would remove the Overwatch marker. In which case, he could, the next time he comes through and there's a firefight, he can just do a firefight. Or he can pretty sure he can just maintain the Overwatch at that point. Let me think about that. No, I think he might have to reenact it. I'll look that up when we use it. In other words, when you use the Overwatch, you lose the Overwatch, from what I remember, because you're basically revealing yourself too as well when you're not on Overwatch anymore. All right, that's effective. All right. So that is a question whether or not you can maintain Overwatch. I think I'll say that you can. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to. Oh, I know why. Because really, you do have to remove it. If you use it, you have to. If you use it, you lose it, right? Because in effect, that would be a little too powerful, right? Because then you would be basically on Overwatch for multiple units at the same time. Let me go read that rule real quick. I just want to make sure I'm back there on that. Give me 1 second. Overwatch elements that have not moved to replace. Why was that not? Oh, that's a key too. You can't put yourself in Overwatch if you move. So I was wrong with that. Place an Overwatch marker next to the element. The element may not partake in fire attacks in the fire phase while in Overwatch. Okay. Dummies also. When in Overwatch, an element may interrupt the movement of the players within their line of sight and remove the Overwatch marker once an Overwatch fire attack has taken place. Yeah. So you basically get one Overwatch fire. It basically sets you up to be able to interrupt one enemy movement ultimately. So, but the one thing I was wrong about is that you can't set yourself in Overwatch mode if you have movement. So it's an interesting. So we are on firefight, but you don't see anybody, and you, in effect, are not. Like if you were adjacent over here, you could try to spot these guys fire, but not. So kind of on the reds, kind of at the admin phase. Let's look at firefight just to be sure. So eligible elements may conduct a fire attack against enemy elements. At that point, we've determined there aren't any viable firefights. You can remove suppression at this point. And then at the very end of the firefight phase, you do close quarter combat, close quarter battles. Okay, that would be this. All right, so we're not doing that. Administration phase, adjustment of markers and tracks, hide. This is when you would do auto revealing. So if at this moment we were in a position where there was an unobstructed line of sight to an element under cover within 5 spaces, it would automatically be seen. So, for example, if these guys were here and they're within 5, right, you would basically be auto revealing each other. Okay, you would be targetable by each other at that point. So we're not. So we're going to move over to the red phase. Okay. You really didn't have anybody. You really didn't have anybody that made sense to do any Overwatch for yet, but it's something to start considering. All right, so I'm going to try to quickly move people so we can get some action. Oh, okay. So now I'm on the red part of the overall turn, and I'm right here in movement, and we're right back to it, right? So if you want to position yourself to watch, you can come over here and kind of position yourself to watch what I'm doing, which is fine. It's fine with playing open here. All right. So again, I got a couple. These are all dummies here. No, it's not. It's a real person. All right. So let me just go one. I'm going to use these guys to kind of fiddle with you over here. Oh, wait a minute. This is black. Okay, so I made a faux pas here. So these are kind of rat ball apertures, which if you have an engineering element or certain infantry elements that have explosives, they could breach that. They could either breach that to make it a yellow, right, which would be the equivalent of a window, right, that you can get out of, or you could keep it a black aperture and then you still can fire one element from here, right? So what you would normally probably do is set up a sniper with a rat hole, right? So that's probably what I would do. I don't. Oh, here's a marksman right here. So I'd probably put a marksman. I'm gonna put the marksman at the rat hole here. I'm going to start moving my law this way. Where 1, 2, obstruction, right? I'm gonna kind of put these guys in a spot here, just to kind of show you how many I can actually get in there. So you don't know how many are here, right? Because 2 of them are dummy. I'm kind of trying to make you think there's a larger group making a big move, right? Let's say while I do that, what the hell? I'll put these guys up here. There's a medium machine gun here. I think I can use an MMG on a rat hole. I don't know if there should be limitation to that potentially, but yeah, I'm wondering. I think that's not an emplaced gun. There are heavy machine guns basically that you have to deploy, but that's not one of them. This is just a medium machine gun. So I guess I can do that. I don't know. I just don't know if there should be potentially some limitations to what can actually use it. Marksman makes the most sense. Rifle, I think anything bigger, or at least there should be a limitation. Sorry, I get the house rule mode. Dummy, let's put it here. Dummy, I'm just gonna kind of move these guys around, just to annoy you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Just to kind of make you feel like I'm pushing on you. Not really. Let's go ahead and just do this. Again, annoy you. 4 point, probably. You know what? I just broke a rule. I broke a rule of this aperture, right? I can only do 2 in that turn, so I'm going to put the dummy forward with him. So now I'm going to keep these guys. That is all of my movement. Let's just make sure. Okay, right here on the turn to red. You feel like I was fair on that? I don't think I messed up anything. The only guys that went full 3 were the dummies because they were obstructed as I planned. I think that's it. Looked good. Well, at least I sounded like I knew what I was doing. Okay, so action smoke. Let's just pop some smoke just to annoy you as well. There's an ammo. So what's another interesting element of this game potentially is the use of resources. Okay? Normally you would apply a certain amount of smoke for the platoon, right? It's a little abstracted in the fact that, technically 1 for 1, like each element has its own individual HE, but I don't see any reason why you can't like hoard it, right? Why you can't put Smokey Joe up front, if you will, and have him hoard like 3 or 4. You probably want to set some sort of scenario limit to it or something, because it just doesn't make sense that somebody's like has a bandolier necessarily 10 smoke grenades. Let's see. I just want to pop some smoke somewhere. The dummies cannot do that. They don't have actions. They can only, and then basically once they're revealed, they are removed from the game. So I have a lot of distractions I'm doing up here, right? Like either I'm convincing some civilians to walk in front of us, and any number of role played actions that are kind of making you think there's a lot of people here, but they're not. Right? Not targetable. I want to get to a point where I can just do an action here. I could just go straight here. Go look at my action list just to make sure I'm reading it. Let's try to get ourselves into a these fired by it. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. These guys are dumb. What the hell? I'll just pop this in the bird. Here's gonna make you take it into this. Pop it over. I think you can do it within 2 spaces. Just gotta pop some up Jason. So this UGL is just gonna pop them up over here, just gonna confuse you to the direction of the defense or counter offense. So whatever. You maybe these guys over here might start seeing some movement kind of come around the corner. Whatever. Role play it as such. That's about it. You're probably we don't have any firefights. Nobody's revealed. All right, so administratively, we're adjusting our marquee height reveal adjustment of markers and tracks. Okay, at this point, we would check for auto spotting. You don't have anyone. If these guys were over here, there might be some auto spotting, but they have obstructions. And let me show you how that's done from apertures. When you're trying, so right here, we're gonna, like if for some reason your blue guys were in this room and they were basically using this aperture, you would mark from you mark from the center of the aperture to the center of the aperture. Unfortunately, there are obstructions, so there wouldn't be auto spotting here. Something to consider. This is an interesting method. Like the hanging gardens of the Babylon right? It's kind of weird. I think that's it for that turn. We at the end turn, we don't have any auto reveals. Let me just double check we don't. These guys almost do. Let's take a look. Let's see if it. I'm actually gonna roll up that for these guys. You see how it doesn't hit the wall? This is just concrete sidewalk. So that's the actual wall. So if I do it from the center of the aperture, the center here, I'm going to actually roll that these guys would be auto spotted because they're in the open. In which case, because they're dummy, they actually just go. So you have determined that that is not a viable threat, right? So that's at least that, and that would have happened here in the administration portion during hide and rig. Yeah, that's a two-way street too. So ending turn, move turn tracker, just entities. This is where if we had civilian markers out here, we would determine whether they were spooked out and running, so forth. By scenario, you could have like victory point conditions where no civilians were hurt, or you could remove victory points if certain civilians were hurt. In most cases, civilians would be hurt if they were in a beaten path of like a machine gun, or within certain concussive areas of a main battle tank fire, and so forth. And then that's kind of what's interesting about that is you have a decision as a friendly, right, whether or not you inflict any casualties on civilians, right? So I like this game in that it incorporates that, right, because it's a reality of urban ops. We don't have any on here, but just to kind of let it be known that that's it. All right, we are back to blue. I think what we'll do here is we'll go through maybe. Are you comfortable going through one more turn? And let's see where we get.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, let's do it. Let me have you talk. I again don't feel uncomfortable with this, but go to the turn thing and then just walk me through what your thought on it and what you think you need to do. So right now you're in movement phase. Just kind of talk yourself through it a little bit, and I'll stop you if I hear something wrong.
Yeah. Movement. how much does he? Can I move over this case, or do I have to?
You can always move one. That's the thing to realize. So if there is an obstruction, which a wall or concrete fence, I don't know what that's specifically representing, you could go one. You'd have to stop. Now, if this is an obstruction, if we literally said this is a concrete wall, you might have to put a ladder, right? But let's just call it more of an obstruction, and just you can always go one, right? So you could move here if you wanted, but you'd have to stop.
How many do I actually get?
Up to 3, but you have to consider but up to 3, you can always move one, but then you have to consider whether or not you've crossed an obstruction, right? Yes. Yes. And then you would stop. Correct. And I don't really have a great way to mark that. Maybe we can let me make a small version of this. What I'll do is I'll match the color of the aperture real quick. Wait 1 second. So in other words, you probably on the table, you might want to have some sort of color. You might want to have just a really simple little way to mark how many people have used it, right? Unless you can remember, but I probably won't. Like, especially in like a larger op, like if you're doing almost a company's worth or a couple platoons, then you might need some sort of marker to see to mark how many people have gone through it. So yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. Just for illustration's sake. Yeah, it's 1, 2, and then you could go through. You would stop. Yeah, at that point you would stop. All right, I think you're good there. Or actually, how many did you do? 2?
Oh no, you're right. I had only so it would be this one.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a time. What I like about that is it's kind of like an obstruction timing mechanism. It's pretty cool, actually. And then let's make some green ones real quick, so we have them. So we got. All right, so you've used 2 here. I mean, you could literally get some more people out the front if you wanted, because you haven't used any of the green. And take your time.
That I do this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would you be able to intervene?
Well, I mean, you're probably gonna easily see each other, but that's fine. Pretty much, I think being adjacent, you're gonna just automatically see each other. So you're storming the building, which is, you knew there was probably some activity, and you're storming. Your leader. Let's see if you have a leader up there. Just trying to figure out why. Let's see. I'm trying to give you some guidance on a leader as far as morale. A leader being present will help you. Oh, let me look at the modifiers just to kind of give you a better idea of when that would be helpful. Okay, so under disruption, a leader being present will make you make it a little easier to move after being suppressed, right? So we are going to be using the disruption rule. So once you're suppressed, you go into a disrupted state. And then as you try to do another action beyond that, you have to roll to see if you can continue your actions that next turn, right? So, so it's good. Long story short, it's good to have a leader present, potentially, if they start getting suppressed. All right, I just wanted to point that. It's okay if you don't, because there's also to keep in mind, you want to keep your leader alive in case they need to control drones, in case they need to call on call off map support, anything, you know. So there's a little. I really like this game because there's some subtlety to it, right? You need to decide whether or not that person's more important as a support person as a whole, or do they need to be a local leader, right? And in this case, these guys are equal rank, at least as depicted. But you know, in certain scenarios, you might want to set up somebody who's actually the platoon leader and somebody who's a squad leader to get in with the action. Your choice. Again, you have a leader over here too, so you do have a backup. Um,
Well, yeah, I'm going to keep the leader there because I don't want the leader to be out in the open.
yep, you don't want them in the open, and you really kind of this is probably going to end up being a CQB or a close quarter battle. Let me look up one thing about the close quarter battle. What I want to make sure, I just want to make sure it only is in the same X or is it adjacent? CQB occurs after all other. Oh, it's only in the same space. All right, so close quarter battle occurs after all other fire attacks and is mandatory if opposing elements are now in the same space. Also, let me look at auto spotting real quick. Another thing to consider is that there are aperture fire limits, and the limit on a yellow or a black is 1. So the movement limit is 2, firing limit is 1. So that is a slight caveat to remember. On a green aperture, up to 4 elements may fire through it. Okay, and that's per second. Okay, so I wanted to. What's the other thing? Oh, spotting. Okay, revealing. Oh, there's another rule about revealing adjacent. Sure. Okay, here it is. Okay, yes. There's a section 4.2, revealing hidden. I'm just going to read it out. Elements are hidden unless they reveal themselves via an action or spotted by opposing elements. A hidden element will have its block standing upright. Hidden elements may not be targeted. Elements are revealed as they take actions in their own player's turn if they are at any time adjacent or co-located. So that's what I was trying to look for. So these guys are going to auto, if at any time, these guys are going to auto basically get each other. This guy wouldn't because they're technically not. Well, that's another question. Is a diagonal adjacent? I think it is. That's just an open question. I might ask Ed if there's what I'm basically saying is whether or not these guys are. Because otherwise we always keep all the rules as a vertical or horizontal. I'm just wondering if spotting is diagonal as well. I think so. I think it is. I think it is just based on how we measure it. Okay. All right. So was that all your movement? Are these guys down? Are these guys down here going to move at all? It's okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, we have an auto reveal situation. So these guys are all going to be revealed to you. Immediately, the dummy goes away. I can't even remember if these are dummy or not. These are both dummy. Oh, God, this is horrible. I made some horrible decisions as red here. All right, so that's that. This is a light machine gun, at least. So he's got a little bit of firepower here. These guys all reveal, and any dummies get removed. So we only have the one dummy. This guy's gonna be hurting. He's very much not gonna exist here. All right, so you take your dummy off because he's revealed. All right, so this is horrible. So who is your strongest element? Actually, is your MMG. So we would enact that first. Hold on, let's do this. Let's do this legit. Let's make sure we're doing this in favor. So you had done all your actions. The only other thing that a leader would have helped with, right, is he could have used an action to make everybody at +1 in their firefight. You don't need that. You're going to overwhelm this guy anyways. It's fine, right? So what you do, and I learned this only after my previous demo, is you start with the most combat power element, which in your case is your energy. So he's got a 4. Um, and then let me go and look at all the other modifiers. Do that. Sure, an easy way for me to think. All right, we are in a firefight. Eligible targets only revealed. We are line of sight. We have line of sight. Firing through friendlies, unless firing from a higher elevation, you can fire from friendlies. Minimum fire and elevation restrictions are in that situation because you're not firing a javelin or something like that. It's some spot. There is beaten zones. An LMG creates a beaten zone 3 spaces. An MMG creates a beaten zone 4 spaces, which is incredible. So if this was like a really large building, for example, and this MMG was firing, from here, space to space here, then he actually has a beaten path behind him that would hit anybody back here. And this is when civilians start hurting, right? Unfortunately, there is a beaten path. Like a machine gun, it's going to keep going. Now you do have a wall here and obstruction, so there would probably be some modifiers to that fire. But if anybody was like walking out here, they would probably potentially be a casualty. Very interesting in that regard. So let's start with. Let's see, where's the best place for me to put this? I wish. You know what? Let me do one thing. This will. Basically use it to show the audience and yourself what modifiers are going to use. All right. So, which way are you looking? Are you looking at your pieces from the other side? I'm on the red. I don't know which way you're faced right now. Which does this look upright to you right now, or
I'm behind the mark.
Okay, so I'll leave it here, and then I'll hold it for the viewing audience. All right, so and one of the first things, of course, is your combat strength, right? What you bring to the firefight, which is a +4. Okay, so as you can see, I have +4 for the combat strength. All right, let us be honest here on all other modifiers. We're not doing spotting. We're doing to hit it. I'm going to slowly speak to each of these modifiers just so that whatever, just for the record. Positive modifiers, okay? If the target is a vehicle and is stationary, not the case here. If firing at a directed target, which is what a leader can do as an action, not the case here. Troop quality higher than opponent. You are higher than them, so you get a +1. So let's put that on the card too. So you get this is where you get affected by scenario. So I'm going to put that on the card. So you get +4 from your combat strength, and you get +1 from your troop quality. All right, then let's keep going down. +1 for each additional element in the targeted space. It's only one, so you don't get +1 if the target is on a roof and firing element at the same height. +2 if targeted space is roof and firing element is higher. Okay, makes sense. +1 if firing element is adjacent to the target space. So we do get that for adjacent. We're going to get that. That's unfortunately going to be both ways, right? Okay, so I've added that. So you're getting combat strength 4, troop quality 1, adjacent 2, in the positive. Okay. No. And I think that's all the positive modifiers to check. All right, now we're going to start looking at negative. -3 if the line of sight was behind a black aperture. If line of sight to the target was behind a black, no. -1 if it was behind a yellow, not the case. -1, true quality lower. It's already been taken care of. It's based on the attack. -1 for each smoke, dust, or cluttered terrain between fire. We don't have that, but I did want to call that out because that's why you do like smoke. The smoke, at least as written, does not block the OS, but it does add up cumulatively to a negative for fire. -1 for each friendly element adjacent to target space. Include -1 for each friendly element adjacent. I think that's in the positive though, in the forward. So, in other words, if you had any friendlies here or here, there would be a negative to it because you're trying to aim more. Makes sense. And I would think it would be towards it, not here. You know what I mean? Like this guy being here, you don't have to take that. Right. -1 for each element in target space that is suppressed or disrupted. They are not suppressed yet. They will be shortly or dead. -1 if a rifle, LMG, MJ firing beyond 5 space range. Interesting. So it does take into effect some for range. -3 if the target is a drone, low altitude. The cover value. This is the one I always forget, unfortunately. It's the cover value. Is it light, medium, or hard? We're inside, so it doesn't take effect. But if you're in like a more of just a wooden house situation, then it will be 1. So each building at the beginning of, or either in the scenario description or otherwise denoted on the graphic has a certain cover level, light, medium, and then that affects this. So I think we did everything. So what you want to do is the first one is to hit, and that you just take this dice and roll it. And the way you roll is the R key. Just hit R like 2 or 3 times, and it'll you got to kind of let go. Yeah, and then do R. Just put your hand over it and then hit R. There you go. That's another way to. All right, so you got a 1. All right, so 1 plus 7, you got an 8. So that's probably a hit. I think it's 50% chance with a hit just by default. Yes, you do get a hit. And now we roll to wound for each targeted element. Okay, so now you roll it again, but let's just see 2 wound modifiers. Okay. I don't see any wounding modifiers in play. So just roll real quick. Just R. Just hit it. Yeah, or you can physically do this. All right, you got a 4. I don't know if that's going to be suppression. Okay, unfortunately, he's just suppressed. Let me see if there's anything. So an MMG at close range only suppresses someone. That's pretty rough. But you got all the other people to go through too. So let's put a suppression marker on one, which will actually affect. It'll give you a +1 modifier. All right, so at this point, anybody else is going to get your suppression modifier. So as you can see, I added suppression to the modifier, so everybody else firing this kind of thing. So your next person would be, I think, your marksman. Oh, actually, you have another MMG. Yeah. Holy hell! Holy hell! All right, so so try that again. This is your these written ones here are all your 2 hit modifiers. So you start with +8. So just try to try to get at least 3 or more on that. All right, you got 10, so you definitely hit him. And now you want to roll for your damage. So roll for damage. Oh hell, that's taken out. Let me tell you what that range is. All right, so 1 to 5 would have been suppression. 6 to 7 would have been a minor casualty. 8 to 9 would have been a major casualty, and then 10 or more is KIA immediately. So they're done. So as expected, that was pretty brutal, which is realistic, right? You gotta basically almost at least a squad, if not a team, storming against one with a bunch of dummies. Right? All right, so that was good. Good storming. You've cleared the building. So another thing is that you've cleared the building, so this wouldn't be an obstructed space. So the leader actually could probably move all the way the next turn. You're still in firefight phase. Nobody else has any revealed targets. Take a look down here. All right, so we're done with Blue's firefight. We would remove suppression on any of your elements. Let me just double check one thing. Let me look at suppression. Make sure that's only for you. So at the end of this player's phase, the phasing player removes suppression on their opponents. So what that does is if red had suppressed any of you, right, in the previous turn, the roll turn, then that still would have been taking effect, but now it doesn't, right? So for example, in other words, if this guy had been suppressed last turn, we would remove that at this point, right? In the way that we're playing it with the advanced rule of disruption, he would turn into a this would turn. Let's just say he was previously, right? He turns into a disrupted. And what happens here, this marker is to denote that he needs to basically be rallied to move on. If you look at your card back here, you'll see that your troop quality is denoted as C. See this right here? See that number right there, 5. I think you need to get that number or lower. Let me just double check that for rallying. Every time you want to look for something. Disruption, there you go. Okay, the element is aiming to roll a target under a target of their initiative level. So we would have to normally roll under that 5. Here's where the leaders help. If the leader was present in the space, I'd get a +2 on the target number. If they're in an adjacent, I would get a +1. So that's where leaders help, is at this moment, right? That's why I was kind of trying to mention it before, right? So at this point here, I'll just kind of roll for you fictitiously here. Again, all you have to do is if you put your mouse over it and then kind of like RRR, it kind of does like that. All right, so then I didn't get it. So this guy wouldn't be able to do movement or actions. Does that make sense? So they're basically still suppressed, but and I believe that this disruption stays until that next removal of suppression, at which case, at the end of the firefight, he would not be disrupted anymore. Let me just double check that. Let me double check if they keep it. Let me see something. No, I think they keep it. Instead of removing suppression markers, flip them to their disruptor. Disruption represents a residual level of suppression. This is an unknown quantity to both players and will not be determined until that is ordered to do something. And now I feel rallying in order to remain disrupted until the end of the turn. At the end of the player turn, sequence is to remove the disrupted marker on unboxed and then to flip. Oh, okay, yeah. So you do at the absolute end of the turn. Oh, you would do it in the administration. It's okay. So where it says remove suppression, you would still do it. Basically, because he wasn't able to rally immediately, he basically loses that turn's movement and actions, right? But then it goes away. It doesn't stay. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully, that was for illustration purposes only. At this point, it's the red turn. Let me see what I can do here to mix things up. I think I'm gonna just kind of slide forward of enemy. 1, 2. I believe that this smoke. Let's see at the end of this. At this point, you would adjust. So this is still here. It is now. Oh, actually, it's gone. Let's see. That's all that. That's my maximum to go over 3. I think I'm gonna move this guy to I can't get close enough to attack, and you're far enough back that. See, this is good. This is good. What happened here is that you haven't left yourself open for attack, so that's good. Yeah, I don't know what else I'm gonna do here. Maybe some of these guys. Fine, because there's a six unit line. Let's just do that. Okay, it's gonna be kind of a rough fight here. I don't think I'm moving anything else. I don't think I have any other actions. Do you want to just go ahead and take another turn real quick to see what happens here? This is gonna be kind of nasty. We'll see. What the hell? If you're interested to finish this one. All right, so basically, blah, 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 administration and phase, blah, blah, blah. Now it's back to your movement phase. So you're back to this side as well. The other thing, though, is that we did get to the administration part, in which case, at this point, technically, all of these are not. They go back to being hidden because we don't have auto. Makes sense because we don't have any adjacent units and there's obstruction here. You would have had to have been in this spot for me to auto. So now it's your choice. Now there's an attacking force there. You can hear him coming. Blah blah blah. So the first question then is: are any of these other guys moving? This guy moving up? However you want to do it. All right, there's. Yep. Yep. Kind of pulling and pressing a little bit. Or we don't have. Yep. Yeah, you probably set them in Overwatch that following turn. Yeah.
Yep.
And if you want to move these guys up, you could.
Yeah.
Just realize, let's see. Okay, so you can move. Go ahead and move them there, but then let's think about this. So if these guys, if you end there, yeah, you can't go up the stairs until the following. That's the thing, because it's an obstructed. Like if you wanted to go up the second floor, you would have to have stopped at that point, and then you go up the next turn. Do you really gain any advantage to that? Not really. So I'm just trying to figure out auto spotting. So spotting would be from this point to this point, but it's kind of automatic for the space. So yeah, there you go. If you don't want them auto spotting, right? If you're not ready to do the attack, you want to kind of stay in there. All right. Now the next question then is, I don't know if you move these guys over here. There you go. You probably, I mean, let's see, this guy wants one. He could go in there if you wanted, but and then the question is, what do you want to do in the middle? And again, at this point, you don't know they're dummy. You know, you can probably guess there might be one or two, but you don't know the exact composition. It's kind of show the audience. I'm going to show the audience what you see. You just see, you hear things, you see things, right? You think it's about this size, but you don't know exactly. Just kind of the cool element.
Right.
Yeah, it's a question of attack or strategically withdraw and maneuver.
Well, I mean,
The other thought, right? The other thought is to get maybe some of your MMG somewhere to be able to suppress them a little bit and do a fire maneuver type thing.
Yeah, I guess. The woman would that be?
Let's see. Let's take a look at where you're at. I mean, you might want to kind of maybe scoot your MMGs into a position where they can start. I don't know. Stay in the cover yet. I don't know, because you got to be. Yeah, you could do that, and then I think that might be reasonable. I don't know. Let me see what else you got over here. So you already moved all your maximum going here.
Yeah, so I'll probably do that.
Let me think about that. Let's take this card off. I'm going to put them there, but let's think about this, though. Okay, so you mark from center to center. Center to center is clear. So you would have it. And you would auto-reveal all of them, by the way. Well, at least at that point in the turn. So, and then you would be in a cover space. So at least if they fired on you, but then you are exposing yourself. So maybe even both of the guys, maybe, right? Maybe you can have this guy come here as just additional. But okay, so here's the interesting thing about the game is that the additional unit being in the element being in the same target space actually makes it easier for them to hit you. And what happens is they target the space, and then each of you take the potential damage, but vice versa as well. So as you, for example, if your MMG fires on this space, because you're not a marksman, you're actually firing on each of the elements. That makes sense? You actually, so in other words, and I might not have done that properly. I might not have done that properly when I liquid red here. Actually, it's your turn. Yeah, when the one red was here, I think you were attacking me. I think. Yeah. All right. So let's just play it. You're trying to outmaneuver him a little bit and do some suppressive fire from a different angle. Let's just see how it works. If it fails miserably, we'll reset. It's fine. And then what do you want to do with these 4 elements? Move them forward to the apertures and start again. See what happens.
I feel like that would come into
Okay, so you just want to, at this point, you want to just try to kind of outmaneuver them and suppress them from a flank.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see how this goes. I think it's a good maneuver. The thing is, you got to kind of play with the abstraction here, right? Because you are still, because it's a little, you got to do it from 0 from 1 to 1, right? So while these trees are obstructions diagonally, if you will, they're not necessarily here. So, all right. So you've moved. So this is an interesting situation. They're in the open. We're kind of in a. Okay, so they're actually. So they don't auto reveal yet because you're not adjacent. So you actually would have to. Excuse me. You'd have to spot them. This is a good. You'd have to non-automatically spot them. Let's go through this. This is on non-auto spots. The spotting player indicates a single space where the spotting is occurring from. They reveal all their elements in this space. Okay, so this is step 1. So the thought we're gonna go all the way through this, and if you decide you didn't really want to do this, it's okay. We can reset. We can mull on this one. All right, so these guys get auto revealed because they're spotting. Okay. I think they would go for it. And then the second step, establish if there is a line of sight to the target space. If this is an error, then leave the spotting. So that's kind of an interesting element too. Like if we had done this and then there was an obstruction to the center, then like if you were, for example, going over here, you would be obstructed by that tree. These guys are unobstructed. These guys will be obstructed. So now at this point, I think you have to spot these guys. I don't think you can't fire over them. You can't fire over them unless you're at a higher elevation. Okay. So if you're on the roof here, I'd probably argue that you could target this space. So you have to basically spot this score. Okay. And the intention here is to act. The third thing, spotting player counts the number of elements that are spotted. Targeted player counts up the number of elements that are being spotted. Add these 2 together. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Count the number of spaces. Add these 2 in here. Count the number of spaces the target is beyond auto spot. Okay, they're not. Deduct this number from the previous number. Okay, so 0, 4, 4. We're still at 4. Deduct or apply modifiers from the table below. Spotting modifiers. Do you have a marksman or a sniper? No. If any element in the target space meet this determinant. No, it's the word I'm sure. Is TQ higher than opponent? Yes, it is. So you get +1. Okay, so now you need basically just need to roll. I'll just do it. All right. Got a 2 + 5 is 7, which is the spot. Needed a 6 or 10, so you spotted these guys. So now they're targetable. All right, so let's see who you. You have a 1 and a 4. You can do your 4 first. targeting the space, but we do it against each one individually. Okay, so I'm gonna do it against the law here. Let's start using this modifier. Combat strength is 4. True body is 1. Adjacent no longer there. And the suppression is not there as well. This is your modifier. So you got a 5. Okay. So take this dice and just put your mouse over it. Don't hold it. Just put your mouse over it and then hit R like 3 times. R, split R. All right. So you got a 4. So 4 plus 5 is 9. So you do hit. And then normally the enemy would roll for whether the damage, but just go ahead and roll. Just go ahead and roll it again. So a 3 is a suppression on that individual. So this guy is Soros. And then roll it again for the other guy. Because you're firing. You get a 6 plus 4. You got it above, so he's KIA. You actually took him out. Good. This guy can still, the other guy can still fire. The rifle element can still fire. So at that point, he's so you've only been firing your heavy stuff. So this is a normal small arms fire, right? So now you only have a +2. So roll just but what you're seeing here is combat is deadly, right? No matter what, you're gonna probably suppress the guy by firing him. So go ahead and R, however you want to do it. All right, so you got a 3 plus 2 is a 5, and that's actually a miss. Okay. So 1 to 5 was a miss. 6 to 10 would have been anything. So you didn't get really ultra lucky, but you did take one out and you suppressed one. So he can't move or perform an action or firefight until that gets removed. So that's take that street. I think probably this is a good ending point for demo's sake. I could save this. Let me save this just in case you ever want to fully play it out with me. Let me see. Quick. So I'm going to pull out these toys real quick, show you what else was going to be possibly coming out. I might do a part 2 of this where we kind of start bringing out some of these on. We have drones. We have potentially an MBT coming out. We have an APB. And the drones are done as low and high. When they're high, they have a better capability of spotting, right? But I think they're more prone to being taken out. Low, they're kind of hugging the terrain a little bit better and kind of zooming over, and they're a little bit less protected. They're a little bit more protected by observation. And I think you have to be low if you're going to drop like a grenade. So if it's a drone that is capable of dropping ordnance, then you have to bring them low. Kind of wanted you to just see what's on here. There's armor. There's armor. No, let's go look at the. Let me go look at the thing. So I'm gonna make sure I get this right. I wanted to just see what's coming up next. Here is the modifiers. Here's the modifiers. So the yellow is small arms firepower. The sniper looking thing is a precision. So when you fire with a marksman, the one thing we didn't get into, if you fire with like a marksman or a sniper, you do have to pick one target element. You're not actually targeting the space. So that's the difference. That's the difference between a marksman and a general small arms fire element. The red is a high explosive firepower. The effectiveness of the element's weapon that uses HE. The black is an anti-tank firepower with HE effect. The effectiveness of the element's weapon against armored targets. And then the gray baseball plate looking image is Pentagon, I guess you'd call that armor value, how well protected it is. And then there's a vehicle facing, which if you see on the bottom of the vehicle, it's the bottom. So there is a facing, there's a facing element to that based on the percussive effect of an MBT firing, for example. There is a rule around that. It's kind of similar to beaten path, but if there are enemies to the left and right of the path of your large caliber rounds, there's a concussive effect in the roadways that can suppress. It automatically suppresses a certain amount of people, and then if you're adjacent to the exact target space, then there's a chance of casualties to civilians and so forth. Really cool game, I think. Overall, it's simple. It's easy to print and play. You don't necessarily need to use blocks. You can kind of use maybe more cardboard or even boxes from shipments probably would be a good thing to maybe you can kind of print off the image and just put it on that and just flip it. You might be able to figure out a way to use clips to make them stand up. I've been trying to figure out cheap and effective ways. I found on Amazon, I found some like Scrabble wood size things. You can get like 30 or 50 of them. So I might use those for elements, and then I'm gonna try to get these like paper clips like they would use at like a wedding reception or something like that to hold cards and stuff. And I want to try to put the Scrabble pieces, standing upright, and then just take them down as they're being revealed, or just flip them around like we've been doing here. It's a great game. What are your thoughts, generally?
No, I had a lot of fun. I really liked it. I like all the things you have to come for. Really have to think about what you was up to.
Right, you get this was kind of an interesting gamble here, right? As you're there's some phasing involved that you kind of need to get used to. I hope I did it all right. I'll send this. Pretty darn sure. I've been reading these rules several times over. Pretty sure I did it right. I need to double check whether I was doing the obstruction for movement right. I think a couple times we might have moved a little further than we could, but it's kind of went both ways there. I love it. The leaders do. What I really like about it is the leaders have enough value and effect, relatively realistic effect from what I can tell. Suppression works well. The fire maneuver seems to be simulated to a relatively realistic degree. You have to kind of get used to the vertical and horizontal movement and so forth. But once you kind of get that, once you have your head wrapped around that, you start to think that way throughout. The only thing that disobeys that is, of course, the line of sight from apertures and so forth. It takes everything and it simplifies it just enough, but it leaves enough detail that I think, in a professional setting, there's value to it. It's a very good game. I think it's really good. I think this would be great for like a ROTC program or a officer candidates school. I think would be able to print this out pretty easily. Maybe over time, make it. I don't. The benefit of it is also that these terrain elements, if you do the print and play, these terrain elements it's modular. It's entirely modular. You don't normally do it as a full map like I've done here, right? I just so happened to ask Ed for, hey, was there a sample full map that he'd done, and he gave it to me just for quickly getting this module together. But in the real world, if you're doing this face to face, which is preferable, you can make anything. You could even use photorealistic Google Maps terrain if you really wanted to, and really get down to the nitty gritty. But you would have to put a little extra effort into describing what each space was. I've lost my voice. Oh, sorry, let me take some coffee. So yeah, I appreciate you playing, Jack, and I hope you enjoyed it. And eventually, we'll get a full table of folks and do it for reals, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think it. I think it generally, after 2 turns here, I feel comfortable as the umpire, and I hope you generally feel comfortable as a player. There shouldn't be too many more surprises from a rules perspective at that point. I hope I followed it properly, and if for some reason Ed tells me I messed anything up, then I'll reply to the YouTube that we did for this, and so be on the lookout for that. I'll post the link for it just in case I did something terribly wrong. Then at least Ed can call it out correctly. So I do plan on. I don't know if you're in the. Are you in the DC area by any chance, John? Yeah. So just for anybody in that area, we are going to be doing a public demo of this at the USMC National Museum near Quantico. So, and that's on April 20th. I've lost my voice entirely. So April 20th, the Saturday, at the USMC National Museum, we are going to be playing this face to face. I don't think I'll have a full on the blocks ready, but it'll be all at least print and play and laminated. I'm gonna try to get it all laminated. Kind of show you all how relatively easy it is to print and play this game. So and use it in a classroom setting or otherwise at an events industry, office of choice, etc. So or for hobby's sake, it's a great game in and of itself. I think it's a very playable game. I think it's pretty darn realistic from what limited knowledge I have on Moat. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.
I did. All right, you guys see me first off?
One second. Hold on.